You listen to the AZ Wildcats podcast. Fortunate enough to be joined by one of my favorite people, Mr. Dave Heeke, the Athletic Director for the University of Arizona. Hello, Dave. How you doing, my guy?
I'm doing great, Mike. How are you today?
Not too bad. I was going to say pretty busy this time of the year, or surprisingly busy this time of the year.
Yeah, there's always stuff going on. It's, we don't just shut down when school starts. It's a 12-month-a-year operation. We're always doing something. And now, kids train all year round and the recruiting cycles and all the things that are going on. It's definitely not a 10 or 11-month job. It's 12 months plus, that's for sure.
So we're going to talk about NIL this show, conference realignment, and some of the coaching hires where we are a couple years. But first, I can't tell you how many people have asked me about NIL and what exactly, and I've kind of figured out where everything is. But when it comes to NIL, to the average person, what is the easiest way for them to support a student athlete or to support the student athlete / athletic program, and maybe somebody that isn't, say, a JDL that doesn't have an NIL lined up per se?
Well, there's a few different ways. Obviously, this is a new landscape for us all in how to, support student athletes in a different way. Through their name, image, and likeness. But, I think we've all heard about, maybe we'll talk more, but, about the larger collectives and the opportunities to be involved in those. Now, even those collectives, whether it's Arizona Assist or Friends of Wilbur and Wilma, those have opportunities for people to come in at a relatively modest level and help support the overall effort. Small kind of monthly or subscription things, different ways for people to enter in what worked for them. Now, also, there's the more traditional and what was really the way NIL was thought about and initially came to fruition was just having direct business deals with student athletes. And that exchange can happen right through our website, right through, dropping in and going to the Arizona Edge portion of our NIL area on our website. Mm-hmm. Where you can make connections. You can say, hey, I've got a product, or I would like to do something. I'd like to match up with an athlete. You can identify the athlete that you might want to be connected with. And that begins the process of connecting, contracting, seeing if it's, legal. Everybody wants to make sure we're following the rules the right way, obviously. And that's a great clearinghouse there. And there's all kinds, you can bring someone in and embrace them in a huge way, or it can do smaller things. That you might want to utilize with a student athlete, maybe with a non-traditional student athlete outside of the high visibility flagship sports of men's and women's basketball or football, whether it's softball or baseball or some of our other great sports where our student athletes bring a lot to the table. So there's different ways to kind of get in there. And again, I'd encourage people to head to the website, or again, interacting with those collectives. They do have different levels and different opportunities.
Right. Okay. Now, as far as the collective goes, explain that to the average person out there a little bit as it pertains to, say, football and basketball. What's Arizona's goal? Where are you kind of at right there with the baseline collective?
Well, again, collectives are third-party groups operating outside of the athletic department, tremendous supporters. We have terrific alignment with our collectives, the Arizona Assist program for our basketball program, and then Friends of Wilbur and Wilma that do football and many of our other sports. But those are, again, external operations where people have, rallied around the cause and are providing resources for student athletes. Our student athletes go out and do things. It's not just paying players. Right. This is an operation that, they have their own staffing where they're doing all the contracting, all the taxes, all of the different things to have the relationship, but they're compensating players to do things out in our community, supporting different community efforts, doing community work, connecting with charitable causes out there, being present, working with youth in the community. And then those collectives are able to distribute funds and resources and support to the student athletes so that they can have additional resources to manage throughout the day, weeks and months and years while they're here. So that's really what the collectives are doing. And they're very common. And again, sometimes you hear about places that have a lot of collectives. I think that can be very problematic. I think those are working and competing against each other. We have essentially two very closely aligned, great leadership that is connected to our compliance area. So I like how we are organized. There's a lot of ground to move forward with. We've got a lot to do, but they're doing great work, and we appreciate their support. Because again, as I said, they do operate outside the athletic department.
Right. Now, as far as conference realignment goes, I got to read in my alumni magazine, the great Dave Heeke on there, talking a little bit about where Arizona is. And kind of the crux was you'd like to be able to stay in the Pac-12, but you also have options at Arizona, and you're going to be able to do what's best for Arizona at the end of the day. Is that a fair summary?
Well, wow, I thought we were going to talk about the PGA maybe today, or Stanley Cup playoffs, or Ted Lasso or something. I guess
we're going to say UFC coming up this week.
Hey, again, I want to be real careful. Every time you open your mouth about the conference realignment things, it gets interpreted the way folks want to interpret it. That's best for their position or how they want a message.
No doubt.
There's a lot of interest and stuff around this. Let me be clear. We are a proud member of the Pac-12. We want to continue to be a proud member of the Pac-12. We are aligned with the other 9 schools who remain in this conference. We're locked together to get to what we believe will be a good point together with a media deal and continue. So that's really the basis point. Okay, let's be clear about that. With that, you always have to do your work. Every day you've got to come in and do your work. There are new developments that occur. We wake up one day and wow, that Big Ten deal isn't quite as tightened up and buttoned up as we thought. The ACC is about to break apart. Everything, and it's just exploded through our social media platforms and probably magnified to a higher level. But again, you always have to be aware of what's going on around your surroundings. My job and my role, along with Dr. Robbins, is to make sure that the University of Arizona is in a position of success, in a position to be successful going forward. And that's what we want to do. So we've got to stay open. We have to know what's going on. Many times in our worlds, you have to look all the way down the path. What could be some worst case scenarios? What could be best case scenarios? What are those midlines? And play those out. Because that's the only way you can be effective, be prepared for the unknown. Because this truly is a little bit of the unknown out there of how things will ultimately come together. But I'm going to come back to my original point.
Right.
We want to be part of it. This is a tradition-rich league, great partners. We enjoy the institutions that we're with in this conference, and we want to stay together. I
think the question I get a ton too is everybody's in lockstep. How come there hasn't been a deal done? And is there a drop dead date for when we need to have a deal done? Well, again, I think we've all gotten in trouble to a degree of putting deadlines or timelines. Timelines are when they get done. When you get to the point where it's a good situation, you agree on it, the negotiations conclude, and you want to put something in paper. So that's the timeline. We're going to get to where we need to figure out what the media deal is, and then make decisions. And whether that happens tomorrow or down the road. Now, look, it's important that we stay moving forward and try to move towards a conclusion to this. That's certainly important. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to minimize this in any way. But we'll just keep pounding each and every day and working hard. And there's really good people doing that, from our conference staff to presidents involved to making those decisions. And we'll keep navigating those waters and doing the best we can, and then ultimately doing the very best we can for the University of Arizona. It's funny. With obviously football is the one that pays for a lot of the bills. I think a lot of people have this misconception that even though it's a basketball school, that it's football pays a lot of the bills right there. When it comes to basketball, though, how important is the national visibility, I guess, of the Arizona basketball product going forward in any deal that Arizona would sign or agree to? I think that exposure, distribution for our programs, whether that's football, basketball, and certainly basketball has been a highly, highly successful worldwide brand. We want to make sure that people can see it, that we're exposed in the right areas. That helps us recruiting, helps our general university, attention to the university. Those are all critical components.
And so we'll continue to try to look towards that as we put, media packages together. Now, remember, but folks, that this is truly driven by football. These media packages are driven by the volume of, dollars that are generated through football media deals, football television. Basketball is incredibly important, but that does not move the needle. Again, I don't mean this in any derogatory way.
Right, for sure.
Real business-oriented conversation doesn't move the needle the way that football does. So we've got to be positioned correctly to make sure that our football brands and the value of our football brands can raise that bar for us from a media package. But look, we're always going to be aware and have to make sure that we've been a pretty strong brand in this league from a basketball standpoint, and we want to make sure that it works for basketball as well. You just can't put basketball out in front to drive the whole machine, because it just won't. You've got to be very savvy. You've got to look at it and make sure you can get to the right spot there. So,
as the athletic director, that's also got to be kind of a cool thing, though, that when when your product is in demand, when people look at the Arizona Athletic Department, they say that's something that we'd like to have, or that's something we'd like to bring back right there. That's not something that everybody can, sit there and say. So you're dealing from a position of strength right there, Dave.
Well, I think we are. I think we're very proud, and our fan base should be proud that people value this place. They value the University of Arizona to a very high level. Our football program is improving. We've got great tradition in our basketball programs. Our women's basketball program is strong. Our other programs are strong. We bring a lot to the table. We're a power university, a research university, an AAU university. You start to bring all those things together. You put them all on the table. We're a pretty valuable asset. We ought to be darn proud of that. And we also, when we're at the negotiation table, people should take notice of that. And I think that's important. Now, there are a lot of those institutions out there. I'm not going to just say we're the only one. So there's some real value in our league and with the brands that we have and the types of institutions that we have.
Now, before we move on to some of the hires, because obviously people are very excited about basketball and football around here, when it comes to a decision, is this something that will always be made specifically to the University of Arizona? Are you necessarily tethered to, say, ASU? At the end of the day, is this something that Arizona will make the best decision, whether that's to stay, whatever that case may be, on what's best for Arizona?
Again, we want to, kind of evaluate all of the circumstances that surround any decision that we would make very, very carefully. We're part of a state, system.
Right.
We have two other institutions that we are very much in line with, that we're governed through one board, so that those conversations would be important with our board on how we would go forward. And that's how those things would happen. And I think there's a lot of tradition that is tied to the two institutions, the one up the road and University of Arizona. There's a lot of history there, and those things would have to be discussed when we got to a point where we even would discuss something like that.
Right. Okay. Now let's talk some. You brought up football. Let's talk a little Jedd Fisch right here. Dave, I'm lurking around campus a lot of the time. I've never seen somebody like Jedd Fisch is there all the time. And I can't tell you, I've had recruiting analysts on from the West Coast. And I think it was Greg Biggins who said, honestly, he said, I've been following Arizona football for the last 35 years, very closely. And he said, I didn't know what to make of the Jedd Fisch hire. He said, but I'll tell you one thing, man. He said, this was a hit out the park hire right here, because everything he said has turned out to be true. And we hear it all the time with coaches. Are they going to follow through on what they do? Jedd Fisch has done that to a T so far. And I think that's something, again, you got to pat yourself on the back there a little bit, Dave.
Well, Jedd's been fantastic, like many of our coaches. Again, I think it's about alignment. It's understanding when you get into a relationship with a new head coach, where you want to go, what are the important factors, how do we want to grow the program? What's important? What's our past? What's our culture, our history? What made it work? Where did it fail? You got to look at all of that stuff. And I think Jedd's a big thinker, really analytical, looking at all of those pieces. Was certainly a guy who wanted to embrace, I know early on I was like, we got somebody who doesn't even care about our history and our tradition. Well, let me tell you, we had those conversations long and hard.
Right.
He does. And so he wanted to embrace that, wanted to use that as a strength. So yeah, he's and again, this thing's about, recruiting, developing players, having a great environment for your players and your coaches to coach in and to play in and ultimately succeed in. And these guys go after the recruiting thing hard. They do. And he was a little bit ahead of the game, I think, the way he set things up, anticipating the transfer portal, maybe anticipating a little bit of the free agency type of a world we live in on the college side. His pro experience helped him. We staffed accordingly right out of the gate, so maybe we were ready with that. Or you've got to manage your personnel.
Right.
You've also got to bring people in. You got to know what's going on around the landscape. So Jedd's done a terrific job, and I'm very, very proud of him and happy for him. And I love supporting him and doing the things we need to do to help invest in his program so it can be successful.
How does it work with the staffing? Because it seems like every time I look, there's a new position, there's a new something that's been created. And I get that that's the landscape of college athletics. You're always going to be expanding. But how does that work? Does he come to you and say, I think we could probably use another here, or, use another coach here, an assistant here? How does that work?
Yeah, Jedd and I talk, at times it seems like virtually every day. But we're in close contact all the time. I think, Jedd, again, back to his thinking and planning, he's looking at structurally what makes the most sense. And we talk about it. What value does it bring? How does it help our program? How does it help the student athlete, the player? How does it help from our coaching side? How does it help us win on Saturday? How does it help? All of those things get talked about as we think about expanding or rearranging positions and job duties. This thing's grown so much from just 8 or 9 coaches, a couple of GAs, a secretary or assistant, and a few other people running around. Got 50 people in an office or in an enterprise now, or in the football department. So you've got social media people, you've got your own analysts, you've got your GAs, you've got your coaches, you've got your player personnel, you've got your recruiting division. So it's an important, it's not the way it was, and you've got to have your hands on all of those, and it's got to be well constructed so that everyone is doing what they need to do. And it leads back to our ultimate goal of helping these student athletes, developing players, winning on the field, but winning with these young men. When they leave here, they're in a better place. So,
all right. Speaking of another hire that's worked out all right, Tommy Lloyd. So you got obviously tough end of the season, but you could tell that, he said, don't worry, we're going to be all right. Kind of a little bit of a different roster coming in, where it looks like there's been a lot of added toughness to it. What I like about coaches is when they, even the greatest, like Tommy Lloyd, he's 61-11, but you could tell that, all right, we got to tinker on some things. We got to work it out. And to me, that's always the sign of a great coach right there, that, yes, I'm doing a good job, but there's also things that I can move around as well. And that's something that I think is very refreshing to watch about Tommy Lloyd.
Well, Tommy's won a lot of games while he's been here.
Right.
He's won a lot of games in his career. Sitting in that chair number 2. I think the great ones never rest on their laurels, never take anything for granted, wake up just as fired up and as intense, the day after a win as they do after a really difficult loss. And, that loss in the NCAA tournament hurt us all.
Right.
It may not have hurt anybody more than Tommy and his players. And you got to wake up. I love a person that wakes up, looks themselves in the mirror, and says, how are we going to get better? How are we going to get better? And it's my responsibility as that head coach. It's my responsibility as the athletic director to say, how can we get better? Maybe not as quick as we all want sometimes, but anyways, I like that type of attitude. Tommy certainly has it. He's uber competitive and wants to win and wants to do well. He also wants to build the right kind of roster, the right kind of guys, the right kind of people to represent the program. It's all important to him too. So I love our toughness. I love where we're headed. I don't think we're done yet. There's probably more that could maybe come in and be sprinkled around it. But I'm really excited about the direction of the program, and I appreciate his leadership and how hard he works and the recruiting. I mean, these guys are relentless. Jedd, Tommy, Adia, they're relentless in the recruiting, and they have to do that to be in the game. Recruiting from understanding the transfer area, but also at the, high school level and in the international game, obviously, with Tommy.
Right. What's the next step then for baseball and softball? Obviously, the hitting's fine. I mean, right now you look at both those. The hitting, you got some young hitting. Pitching's been a little tough. What's that next step for both? Two proud programs right there. What are you looking for going forward?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, two coaches in their second year, and I think I'm not going to say you're anticipating some of the challenges that we were facing, but that sometimes happens as you flip programs, as you live in this new world with a lot of transfers and people running around, and trying to find the right niche of the players that align with the type of coaching and the development that takes place. So, yeah, hey, we can hit the ball on both fronts. I thought we were very good offensively. Softball side, I thought, we had some kids that were faced with some challenges during the season. We had some injuries. We had some kids that quit. I thought it was just a tough year from that perspective. That played into it as well. But on both fronts, I think trying to make sure that we can hold leads, get outs when we need to, be strong from the circle or from the mound, that we can be strong in those areas. We've shown it at times, but right. I think need to be very consistent. When you get into those moments when you can close out, when you can keep your team in a spot to have a chance to win, we probably needed a little bit better from that. So I think that's a focus to do that. But likewise, we'll be different. Both teams will be different. I think Caitlin brings back a lot of her players, so that's really exciting on the softball side. We'll lose some guys in baseball, so there'll be some new names that will have to come forward to grow it. But really confident in both of them. They're, again, terrific people. They're good people with good people around them, and they're going to make good decisions, and we will be successful in those programs. They're very important to this institution, Caitlin's going to start another streak, and we're going to be right there. Hey, baseball is still in it. We're going to the Pac-12 tournament, so let's go play and win some games and see what can happen.
All right, Dave, before we let you go, had a lot of people, I always get this question. Any news on the renovation of the west side of the football stadium?
Well, again, we still would love to do that. I think we're challenged coming out of, and I hate to use this as an excuse, but, that boomerang or that the challenges coming out of COVID, inflation, finances are challenging right now. We've got to get a grasp of that. We're going to we have been relooking what kind of smaller phases we could do. We were pretty close before COVID to jumping into this on that side. We're also embarked right now in the middle of a golf project, $15 million golf renovation and clubhouse out at Tucson Country Club for our golf teams who have never had a place to call home and have been pretty successful. We just finished a $2.5 million clubhouse, fully renovating the clubhouse in baseball, which is going to be dynamic and terrific for recruiting. So those are important. We're going to launch into, one of the big projects that really needs to be done is our tennis program, both of them, but our tennis center, enhancing that as well. That's going to be a $7 to $10 million effort. So lots going on, but at the same time, not losing our focus there on the football side, because it sat there for a while, especially the west side, where some of our greatest fans have stuck it out for a long, long time. I want to be here when we do that, because that'll be a good day. But lots of complications. We've talked about this before, Mike. It's a challenging thing over there, but we keep looking at it, and we're going to try to have some things lined up as we go into next year. Some things that I think we can do.
Oh, and one last question. What's the relationship like with Nike?
It's good. Nike's been a really strong partner of ours, and we continue to enjoy that relationship. It's been good for our student athletes. They've prioritized us, and we enjoy that relationship. We'll come up in a couple of years for a renewal there, so we'll be looking at that. But they've been great partners for ours.
All right, Dave, I can't thank you enough for coming on. And like I always tell people, one of the things I really appreciate you is that you're never there to take the credit when something goes well, even though I try to get you to do it. but you're always there to take the blame though when something doesn't. And you know what? That to me is the mark of a leader. And again, I just very happy that you're our AD, Dave.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. I'm here to help our coaches and our student athletes be successful. That's my job. That's our job as staff. And we don't need to be out front. We need to be there helping fill the gas tank, doing the things that need to be done to get our teams where they need to be, and doing the things that they need to do to have a lot of success. So I'm honored and proud to be here. I truly am. Love it. Go Cats. Bear down.
Can I get a back the A from you?
Well, we didn't talk any hockey or any golf or anything like that, did we? We just kind of
we got right to the brass tacks right there.
That's right. So no, hey, back the A. Thanks, Mike, for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, Dave. Dave Heeke, appreciate you again. We'll talk to you soon again. Thanks, my guy. Appreciate you.
Thanks, man.
All right. Now with Dave off, it's time to pay a few of the bills, and we're going to talk a little bit about what Dave said, or at least I'll give some of my opinions right there. But first, BetMGM. All right. Now, here's the deal. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code PHNX. There's a few different offers right there, depending on where you live. But for our Arizona audience, you will get up to $100 in bonus bets on your first wager with BetMGM. Again, make sure you use bonus code PHNX. And again, check out the show notes for details. Right now, I am batting a losing streak right now. Everything I've thought that was going to go right in the NBA playoffs has gone wrong. I like the Lakers to win tonight. So if you say, Mike, you're an idiot, I'm going against you, go on BetMGM and bet against the Lakers. And in the meantime, let's hear Shane Diefenbach with the disclaimer.
Disclaimer, 21 plus to wager. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. U.S. promotional offers not available in Washington, D.C., Mississippi, Nevada, New York, and Ontario. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Colorado, D.C., Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, Wyoming. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369, New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, Arizona. 1-800-522-4700, Kansas, Nevada. 1-800-327-5050, Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF, Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help, Michigan.
All right. One of the big takeaways here, because we always get Oregon State fans on here, one of the big takeaways is that Arizona has options right here. When it comes to the Arizona brand's strong, and that's like what Dave said. When it comes to basketball, Arizona is one of the top 10, 15 brands, recognizable all throughout the country. Don't think that I'm really breaking any news right there. Obviously, things have been a little up and down with football, but still, Arizona is one of those schools, though, that you look around and it's recognized. And so there's a reason that other conferences would be interested in Arizona. Again, solid academic institution, brings you good revenue sports as well. So again, they're going to have options. And like you said, and I totally get it. This is just me, right? This is just me surmising right now. But there's certain things that Dave's got to say. Again, because if you're trying to work out a deal with the Pac-12, I totally get it. You want to be able to say that we're all in. Working with things to get this where we need to get. But at the same time, you're also, if it was that simple, a deal would have already been done. So there's always things that they're looking at. Now, again, I'm not projecting into the future. I'm just saying that there's a reason, though, that still, if things were going to be done, they probably would have been done by now. We'll find out. But again, I do understand that the conference is trying to stay together, but with all these different reports coming out, it becomes a little bit, I think it becomes a little difficult to sit here and just say that, well, this is going to be easy. This is going to be easy. Because at the end of the day, like Dave said, their top priority is Arizona athletics. Now, again, he'd love for it to be in the Pac-12 conference, but they're also going to do what's best for them right there. And that's also why, let's be honest, I'm happy that, and Dave said this before, but I'm happy that we also have a guy like President Robinson here from an athletic perspective who actually cares about athletics. You see a lot of presidents around the conference. You see a lot of presidents around the country, and this is no diss towards those presidents because, again, it's still an academic institution. But people that actually, having a president right there that is at these games, that enjoys watching a good product on the court. So I always tell people that, if he's not going to sign off on something that is just no good for the University of Arizona when it comes to athletics, because again, President Robbins, Dave Heeke, these are still people that enjoy athletics. If they didn't enjoy athletics, I would have some real concerns about what the future is, but this is a unique situation there, and I do appreciate that. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about these sports and the individual aspects here, but first, Circle K. Now, I wanted to ask Dave, but I knew he was against the tight clock. I should have asked Dave if he's been to Circle K. Dave's a smart guy. I'm sure that he's been to Circle K. Make sure you're not missing out on this great stuff. Right now, text PHNX to 31310 to join their SMS subscriber club and get a buy one, get one free offer for a 32-ounce Polar Pop. Head to circlek.com/store locator to find one near you. And Tap and Bottle. Speaking of which, you can get 4 peaks at Tap and Bottle right there, and you can come to the Tap and Bottle watch parties. Kenny Abbey has been there before. Chad McDonald has been there before. Many of the people in this chat have been there before, and we appreciate all of you showing up right there. So again, Tap and Bottle, again, Scott and Rebecca do a great job. Support local. Now, when it comes to basketball, I totally get it where, listen, I do understand that football pays more. I totally get that. But also, and that's why I asked this question, basketball is the lifeblood of this community. I mean, from the moment I grew up, I was of age to be able to know it. I knew that Arizona basketball was covering everything right there. And that's a big thing. Yes, maybe it doesn't pay the bills that football does, but these guys also aren't, they're also not immune to the idea that, basketball really matters around here. So when you're looking at things like streaming, when you're looking at, linear versus other options, you're also going to probably look at it and say that what's the best way to get Arizona's brand out there? What is that best way? And again, Arizona's got options. This is just totally me surmising right now, but and I'm going to keep going back to this, that I believe that if a deal was, if it was an easy deal, like we've been hearing, like a lot of from media sorts saying that a deal would be done, a deal would be easy, I believe the deal would have been done. That's kind of where I'm at with this, because I'm not really a believer in, just talking. Sooner or later, you got to find something right here. And Connor Johnson, I'm just giving you a hard time. Baseball is very, very good for Oregon State athletics. I appreciate you hopping in here all the time. But baseball, obviously, for Arizona isn't done as well. But that's kind of where I'm at, is that if you're Arizona, you've got to find the best deal for you from a money and from a visibility standpoint. And in my opinion right now, I think that probably, and again, this is just my opinion, I believe that that's probably elsewhere, just because right now the Pac-12 just doesn't have we're kind of fumbling around right here. And again, this ain't Arizona's fault, because again, Arizona, I have full faith in what they're doing for a lot of the reasons that I put out there. But right now, if there was a deal to be done, a deal I believe would have been done. Now, where could you possibly watch Arizona athletics, though, during this time? And I will say that you could go to FOCO. FOCO. That's somebody else. That's FUBO. Where could you look cool with Arizona athletics? That's FOCO. Now, Brandon Sanders, maybe the hardest hitter at the U of A that I've ever seen, came on and said that he gets stuff off FOCO. The hat, the straw hat, it looks absolutely fantastic. That's where Brandon Sanders got it. I've gotten some stuff from there. Brandon Sanders is obviously much cooler than I am. FOCO has always had our back for Arizona sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by visiting FOCO.com and use code word PHNX. For all the non-presale items, use the promo code PHNX for that. And, oh, geez. Now, let's say you're like Chad McDonald's there in the chat, and you got a brand new child, and it's difficult to sleep at sometimes because your sleep schedule is all messed up. That's where it comes in, OGs. Now, you can find them at your local dispensary, ogsbrands.com. Must be 21 years up to enjoy responsibly. Now, you can get the strawberries, the cream, the Happy Balance, all kinds of stuff. There's a reason that it's taken off. So right there, check it out. OGs right there. And PHNX. You might say to yourself, Mike, what is PHNX? You can become a diehard at PHNX with all kinds of cool stuff right here. Now, here's the deal. Go to check out phnx.com to grab your membership and receive exclusive content, discounts on all chats, merch, and access to our Discord chats, watch parties, all kinds of good stuff. And so that's kind of where we're at right now. But with Arizona Athletics, I still believe, and again, Dave knows my opinion on this. I still believe that the Big 12 is the best place for Arizona Athletics because it gives you a stability there. It gives you that you're going to be on TV, that you're going to be making a certain amount of money, and that you're going to be locked in. And to me, it's all about security at this point. And if it's about security, that to me is probably better over there. Plus, I have no clue what Oregon and Washington are going to do. You keep hearing reports about how they could be added to the Big Ten, all of that stuff. And again, that to me is why Arizona's best move is probably elsewhere. Now, again, we're going to talk about it a lot tomorrow. But again, I wanted to ask all the questions out there that people reached out to me about. Tried to get as specific as I can. And granted, when you're dealing, an athletic director's got a lot of different jobs just besides answering questions. But like I said, I got a great deal of faith in Dave Heeke and President Robbins to make the right decision right here. A lot more than I would if I was, say, rooting for ASU. I'll put it to you like that. That's for Jacob Franklin behind the scenes. But big thanks to Dave Heeke. He's the man. All of you on there, really appreciate all of you. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Brad Alice, we got a special guest coming up Wednesday, by the way. Wink. But again, thank you all out there. I'll be back with you tomorrow. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.